Okay, hello. So this is a England review for Euros 2020. Um, so I've done a couple of videos. So I did one video on England's performance and the problems, and it was a bit of a rant. So this is kind of a shortened version. You might want to listen to that if you can listen to a 3 hour. It's not a rant, but just me discussing with myself what's wrong with the England team. Did it after the Scotland match, and obviously England have played the Czech Republic, so extra match. But anyway, this is a shortened version with some screenshots. So we're looking at the performance, looking at what went wrong, what went better, particularly in the Czech match, and why. There's some things that concern me with how England are playing. Now, when I was a kid who used to play midfield, I was what you'd call a box-to-box midfield player, and was pretty good. So my game is built on intelligence, on understanding the game. So when I'm watching a football match, I kind of look out for the stuff, see what's going on, how the players are playing. As we'll discuss in bits. So I'm going to start off with this screenshot or this picture. So the pictures are, so obviously this is the Europa Cup final one. Talking about Europa Cup final, you'll find out in a bit. But this is taken from BT Sport. I'll put the links below. So this is from BT Sport, obviously, and you can find the game in YouTube in BT Sports YouTube channel. I'll put a link down below, and I'll put a link to the England pictures from the BBC. So if you want to find them, go. That's just, and I'll put a link to the match report, I think, so you can see the match highlights and go into iPlayer. So what's with this Europa League? Now, this is kind of what got me thinking. So you can blame a bunch of scousers for this on Twitter. Maybe they're not scousers, actually, Liverpool fans. So like, I watched Europa League, bored out of my head, really. It's funny, actually. It is a funny story. I was watching it on YouTube on my telly, and literally, as the last players, the outfield players in the penalty shootout took their penalty, so the 10th penalty, it froze. So I presume everyone was going, let's get on YouTube and watch. So I actually missed the goalkeepers taking their penalties, and it took me a few minutes to find out that David De Gea missed his penalty, and so United lost the Europa Cup final. I'm a big United fan, by the way. Don't hold that against me. So they lost, and then I saw his penalty and stuff. That's why. That's how you don't take a penalty. Slow run up. I think I'm going to show the goalkeeper. I'm going to hit it to the right, his left, and then hit it really slowly. You want to kind of firmly whack it in the corner, as everyone else did. Funny that actually that penalty shootout, perfect penalties, but the goalkeeping was atrocious. So back to the Europa Cup final. Why are we having a screenshot from the Europa Cup final? Well, it's about how teams are organised defensively. This is part of the issues of breaking down. So all these teams in Euros, not just England, have to be equipped and have to play and have to adapt and have to be set up to break down defensive teams. Now, all these teams have finished position 1 or 2, got through a playoff in their groups to get through to Euros. There are different standards of teams, but he says, stumbling on his words, but basically they're very good teams. So they qualified, and they're certainly decent enough to know how to hold this kind of basic formation, and they probably spent 2 or 3 weeks in their camps doing that. So they'll be well set up. So for a team like England and also the other teams, the issue is offensively, how do you break this down? You can't just play normally. So Europa Cup final. So basically, this is how I got into my spat with the Plastic Scousers. So I saw on the BBC website, Liverpool player. I can't even remember his name. He's just a nobody at the moment, and he is a nobody. Who plays left back, right back, full back for Villarreal. Anyway, on the bench, didn't even play. Afterwards, he's sort of posting a video on Twitter going, in his broken English, Manchester United get out. I was just like, if you're going to try and, I mean, my first point really, which never got mentioned on Twitter, was like, you've just won a medal, which actually you didn't play in, so you didn't really deserve to win. And I think you're a sub. You should be happy that you've won a competition that's big for your team. So obviously he's happy, but it's like the priority was obviously celebrate, not to kind of poo-poo on Manchester United. I don't know what he was doing really. Playing up to being a plastic scouser was how I'll put it. But you know, celebrate, don't. And then in his broken English, he's get out, get out. If you're gonna put something on Twitter like that, at least speak proper English. Get out, get out. I could think of a more firm retort to that than just get out, get out. Enough said. Thirdly, he's a nobody really. Then all these scouts was like, he's won European Cups, but yeah, he never got to play, and he never did well for Liverpool, so they got rid of him. So obviously, he's your number one player. That was my point. And I said I wasn't really upset with the game. So I mean, this is a problem. So I'll probably go into videos about this, but this is a common theme with United. So for the last 2 or 3 years, the United have got much better at this season, but they tend to stray and behave in their older United manner. So obviously I'm a United fan, I want to see United do well. So they're kind of getting out of this habit, but they tend to stray back. So if you look at the league table, there's lots of draws, and this is why. So one team set up very tightly. So it's United versus whoever, you know. Unless you're another one of the other big or bigger teams, you're going to be set up to defend. So it's United have to. It's United's responsibility to win the game. They have to break down the opposition's team and formation and play an attacking, flowing kind of football, but they don't. What they do instead is they do several things. One is the pace is just slow. I mean, the pace never picks up until the opposition score. So they've got this great record of, you know, no losses away from home last season, but actually quite a few of those they went behind because they weren't playing football. Basically, they were just one pace, very boring, and it's very easy to defend against. Two, it's about possession football really. So we'll come on to that in a bit. But ultimately, winning games is about having the ball. You've got to have the ball to score. And the pace of the passing is slow as well, so it just goes left to right. We'll kind of show you in a bit with that. And there's no pace, there's no urgency, there's no pace of the ball, there's no pace in the passing, there's no runners, there is no great distribution, and there's no penetration. Therefore, you don't create chances, and therefore you don't score goals, and therefore you don't win football matches. Now, that's just a general problem, I think, for football. Particularly coming to something like Euros 2020, we're seeing this. This is going to be, I think, the issue. The team that does this the best breaks down the opposition like a Villarreal. Probably is going to end up winning the tournament. Well, certainly the team that does so the best has the best chance. So Italy, why are they doing so well? Well, they're doing this. They're about the only team that are doing that. I mean, very efficiently. I think other teams are doing it, but not very efficiently. It seems to be a problem. in all the games. And again, you'd expect teams like they're full of not like the Messis and Ronaldos of the world, but international players. They've got the ability to be able to do this, especially with 2 or 3 weeks of pre-training, camp training before the tournament. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. So seeing the screenshots, so this is how. So this was a really, really boring football match. And literally half time, I was like, "Oh, someone please fast forward." It's like I said to myself, literally, I bet this game is going to finish in penalties, and it probably go to extra penalties. And boy, it did. It's just boring. So Villarreal, obviously Villarreal. So there's the ex-Liverpool guy, but fair play to Villarreal. Villarreal are Villarreal. They're not Manchester United. It's up to United to break them down, but they didn't. That's why they lost. So the game was very boring. They were very well set up. So I think that's about, well, just fair play to Villarreal. But ultimately, the match was boring. Match won't be remembered. As a United fan, this is why I wasn't disappointed. If we were to win that competition, I don't think we deserve to win it playing like that. I don't think we deserve to win it, winning it in extra time or on penalties or extra penalties. If we can't break down Villarreal because we're a more attacking team, then that's their fault. If we'd won, we wouldn't have deserved to win. So if United won, however they won, post 90 minutes, a boring 90 minutes, it's like, I won't remember that game. Game won't be. I mean, this is the point I was trying to make on Twitter to the Plastic Scouser. In the panion of particularly Ferguson years of winning leagues and 3 European competitions in his time at Old Trafford and winning cups, did it with a certain flair and style, and that's expected of Manchester United by United fans. That's the expectation that's upon them. So even if they've won that, as a United fan, who really cares? Great, we've won one competition, but we won this 3 years ago. United's United, and for United fans, it's about having bigger fish to fry than just winning the odd competition. And I think the competition kind of covered up the lack in the team last year. So I think the team were on a pinnacle. The team were on a pinnacle, something good. So I think the other good thing about them losing like this and painfully and in this way against a team like Villarreal playing in this style is they've got to up their game. So we'll talk a bit about that. So literally, you've got. So I think this is about the 80th minute. The ball goes back to the Villarreal keeper. He kicks it out badly, straight to a United player. Goes straight to Wan-Bissaka, who's playing right back. So straight away, this is the thing. As soon as they lose possession, they go into this 2 lines of back 4. As you can see, there's no distance between the back 4. Talk a little bit about running between the lines later. So the best way one of the best ways to beat that is to run between the lines, but there is no space. So someone from midfield can't run behind the midfield and in front of the defence because there's not enough space to. There's not enough space to pass the ball, and there's really no space for Cavani. So there's lots of problems with United's lineup. But you can see Villarreal all getting back, and even there's like. Actually, I mistakenly counted the linesman's yellow flag as a Villarreal player. Like there were 11 players on the pitch. Obviously the goalkeeper's on there, but you can see the back 4, the midfield 4, and even the defence. So one of the big problems there is there's no one in attack. Just Cavani's up on his own, isolated. As well with that, you can see the way I've explained it with them just losing the ball. They're actually only just getting back into position, but already we've got 6 of the 10 outfield players in the right formation already to defend. You can see the midfielders are actually facing back, so you can see where we are in play because where the players are running towards. And so the arrows just the direction of the Villarreal players who aren't quite in formation. So within a minute they're going to get into formation. So if we go to the next slide, this is what United normally do, and this is what teams do. And basically, this does not break a team down. So the ball just goes from one side of the pitch to the other, and very slowly as well. So the point out is you need a bit of pace in the passing, as well as better passing, better quality of passing, and you need runners to pass to beat that formation, basically. That's how it's something. So there was another screenshot I was going to put in, which I didn't. So Paul Pogba's the third in that line, and then Lindelhof's the fourth. So the screenshot eventually, Pogba gets the ball. There's no one or nothing to do, so they're basically just passing left and right all day long. They've got 10 minutes left. So he actually hoofs the ball to the left back. Sure, he's out of picture here, and actually he goes, it's like a rugby kick out of touch. It's like 50 meters above his head. So we're not really going to discuss this, but this is how the Italy team set up. So England don't seem to be playing a pressing game at all, and when they do, they doesn't seem very structured, very organised, very well set up very well. But Italy's a perfect example. In fact, Italy are the only team really who are incredibly well set up to do this both defensively and offensively, attacking and defending. So you've got a back four, a midfield four, and between you've got a holding midfield. So they basically stay static and they just move across the pitch as the opposition move the ball across the pitch. And it's very difficult to break down. So the holding midfield is important. So he just heads to the ball. So in the next slot, so those are two opposition players, for example. One of them moves. So the Italy team here would be in the same formation. So this is where the second player is running to. So what the in the next picture, what the holding midfield player does is just go to that player as soon as he gets the ball. That is. So therefore, this is what I saw. To go back to intelligence when I was watching Italy play. So if that player does get the ball, he's got 4 defenders around him, so he can't pass the ball in those directions, and he's got a holding midfielder in it, the Italian holding midfielder, basically nipping his boots. So the only option really he's got is to get the ball back. Bears looking at in another video because this is really effective. So basically, before we've gone on to how England are playing, we looked at the problem. Looked at 2 things. So one is the problem breaking down a solid defensive formation. 2 is how Italy are playing. Italy, I'd really like to look at Italy in another video. In many ways, it's more interesting. So there are basically 5 things to how go on a defence. It's a bit like warfare, where you have battalions of troops on a map and you've got to move them into the correct place, and then they have to play the right, in this case, formation, the right play to achieve target. So it's totally different, but actually from a map position it's exactly the same. So it's basically 5 things, and again, when United have really struggled, this is what is not happening. So movement, so speed, just the game's got to be played at pace, not slow. The ball, when it's played, has to be played at pace. Experience, intelligence. So intelligence is just kind of an understanding of how to play the game from experience, basically. In that the game opens up, and you just have the intelligence to know if you play a ball in a certain way that you can open up and have potentially a shooting opportunity. and the player you're playing the ball to will have the intelligence to know what you're doing without telling you, because obviously he can't tell you. So the first thing I learned when I was a kid is if you want to keep attacking, when you pass the ball, you have to play in front of the player so he can run onto it. The quickest way to slow a game down is to pass to the feet of the player, because the player has to stop. What you want is to get the player moving, and you want the player to be moving once he has the ball, or to wait for the ball, get the ball, and then start moving. It creates a very slow game. And if you go back to the previous slide of passing up across the full midfield, that's part of the problem. Why there's no pace in the game, because it's just defeat, control, turn, pass the ball to feet. If you kind of think about it logically, it's kind of hard to break that down, because you've got to be careful when you're playing the ball in front. So talk a bit about that later. So let's look at some of the negatives and positives to England's play in the first 2 games and even 3 games. So this is 4-3-3 formation, which actually we'll find out later. Gareth Southgate didn't play. You could say he played a very similar formation. Like particularly, obviously Foden wasn't playing against the Czechs, but Sterling was. But he played kind of in a more, again, between the lines position. Not quite in midfield, not quite in attack, a bit of both. And that actually changes the game. So England here are in a 4-3-3 formation. So what are Foden and Sterling doing? I'm not being critical here. I'm just like, what are they doing in a formation? I'm not. So it looks to me that Harry Kane's come short, and they sort of swapped what I'd say should be their traditional roles, which isn't a problem. But Sterling basically playing centre forward, so you're not going to give him the ball, so he's not doing anything. But so there's basically no one in the penalty box apart from one player, and the player you want to be in the penalty box isn't in the penalty box. So it's kind of, obviously you wanted to attack Scotland, you wanted to create opportunities. So how do you naturally create an opportunity from there, where actually you're playing 4-3-3, but you're not playing 4-3-3 at all, because when you're attacking, you've only got one player in the box, and you've got the wrong player. So I don't really understand what Foden and Sterling are doing. I think they've been largely ineffective. I feel sorry a bit for Foden. So another issue we'll talk about later with Sterling is, if you're going to play 4-3-3, I think you classified the top 3 players as strikers. That is, instinctive strikers, as in goal scorers. Wouldn't count anyone. I wouldn't count Foden as an instinctive goal scorer, and I wouldn't count Sterling as an instinctive goal scorer. So it's like, how therefore are they being set up to play in that formation? Because what you end up coming to the conclusion, however you talk about it, they're clearly not. So there's something going wrong there. So what's going wrong? And I think it is a mix of the players. I think it's a mix of how the players have been prepared and set up to play, and it's a mix of the formation. So it's one of those 3 things. So this is naturally what I do. So we go back to those 5 things. So you're looking for movement, players making runs off the ball, intelligent runs. You're looking to play the ball at speed, not to be slow. So I think one of the big problems, actually, which I haven't even put in a picture because it got me put in a picture, is England seems in all 3 games have started very well, and then just not just gone off the ball, but the game's got worse and worse and worse as it's gone on, and that's kind of illogical to me. I mean, I think there are reasons for it. So I think a reason in the Scott game is the Scots were doing very well and got confidence out of that and started playing better. And England probably the opposite. Oh, no, we're not doing very well here. The whole England thing of the pressure playing for England comes to the fore. I don't think they cope very well with that. Again, there's something I've not alluded to or talked about here, but probably what's the most... Sorry, I'm hiccuping, burping a lot. If you can hear that in the audio. So England played with the traditional fit of a traditional England team in the last 10, 15, 20 years. So that was really disappointing. So anyway, movement and players with experience and intelligence to go, okay, if I do this and then pass the ball here, you're going to do this. And that comes again with experience and formation with correct positioning. So naturally here, I want to see more people in the box to start off with. I want to see someone making a run down the wing, or I want to see a winger with the ball playing in tandem with a fullback, ideally, if not fullbacks. So I'd get an overlap, running down the wing, getting a pass, dribbling down the wing, which is something we don't see. Getting a cross in, but that just doesn't seem to be happening at all. And why are you going to try and get down the wing and make a cross if there's just one player in the box? So you need more people in the box. That's the first thing. And you need players making those runs. No one really dribbles in the modern game, which is odd because when you're talking about breaking down teams, the easiest way to break it down is for a player to beat another player. Then that completely changes everything to do with the dynamics of what we're talking about in terms of one player is basically marking off another player, and you're restricting space. That player then is out of the game. So there are no runners, there is no movement, there's no one in the box except one person. So here, what in this picture are England trying to do? So the best pass is to Shaw, actually, which isn't an easy one. He's on the opposite wing. So we're talking about playing the ball at speed, so the right back can't nip the ball. Accuracy, so he actually gets the ball, and then he's got the same problem. What does he do with the ball? So actually, what do? You can't really do anything, so the ball's going to go backwards. So this is an example of one of the more positive elements of England playing the Scotland match. So we're playing 4-3-3, but there is no one in the box again, no runners except Shaw. So Shaw's a runner here. So we've got arrows here. So Shaw's going to on the left wing is going to run in this direction. The ball's been pumped up to whoever's up front. I think it might have been, I don't know who it is actually. It might be Sterling. It might have been Rashford when he came on. No, it's not Sterling because he's the other guy in the arrow. So Sterling should be making a run with Shaw. So the other thing is Shaw gets the ball, it's on the wing, and then can therefore make the cross that we've just talked about. So he does. And this is the situation. So again, the overlap here works, however, only Kane is in the box. And he's marked by two players. So what's Shaw got to do? So Sterling run is too late. And the other fullback should be making a run. So I think the most disappointing thing here is Shaw's now got himself in a good position. You've got Harry Kane in the box, marked by two players. You've got Sterling, who's made a wrong run, and the run's too late. And the other three players in the screen are just ball watching. So certainly the other fullback needs to be making a run to the back peg. The worst thing you can do is overhit the ball and then the fullback gets the ball. But even in that situation, the fullback's not running just to... So the fullback's not running to cover that option that Shaw's going to overhit the pass. So really Shaw's here is in a good place. He's being a traditional winger. He can push the ball. So Shaw's got to decide what to do. So he passes to Kane because really Kane's the only option. So by this point, could have pulled the ball back to Sterling if he stopped running or checked his run or changed his run. So Sterling is the late runner. He needs to stop for the pullback. So the way Sterling has made his run, he can't do that. So it might look a bit questionable, but actually, by the time Shaw would to give the ball to Sterling, there's two players around him who can block him. So what you're typically thinking, I think, what I'm typically thinking on the pullback is Sterling's made his run too late. He should be where the end of that blue line is. So in the picture, this is when Shaw crosses. So basically, Sterling's there. He's made his run correctly, so he is at that end of that arrow. He is an option. Not only is an option, he probably won't be marked unless the defender, who it would be to his left, sees him come in. So need to have awareness, noise in the back of his head. So that's probably not going to happen. So at this point, Sterling's got to think, I'm not here. He's got to think about where the runners are going. So naturally, I'd be thinking, if this were me, that the runner behind him would just, he's going to keep running because he's going to try and leg it back to cover the cross. So Sterling can check his run and even not just check it, move inside a bit more, create a bit of space for himself. And then he's there for the pullback around the just behind the penalty spot, I think it is. I can't really see the penalty spot. I think it's on the pitch where the green of the pitch, the grass, and turn shade. Classically, where a Scholes or a Lampard would be scoring a lot of their goals. That kind of midfield run. But again, very static. So this is where I have a massive problem. So England's two holding players. So the ball's come forward and the ball's gone back. You can see the direction all the players are running at. So this is England's players. So holding player number one, holding player number two. So obviously Rice and Kelvin Phillips. So actually, one of them at this point is not playing a holding role at all. Worse than that, they look like they're attached by a 10-meter rope. So they're literally playing in the same position. And this is a massive problem. This is my big problem with the Scotland game. Haven't been played. Literally, we've got two holding players. They don't need to. They're trying to play the same position. They're always in the same space, doing the same thing. We don't need two players covering. We don't need two players trying to do the same thing. It restricts options. Literally, it takes a player out of the game. But actually, they're like 10 meters apart as well. It's almost like there is rope between them. And that for me is a massive problem. So the first thing you want to do is to go to the Scotland game and go, okay, first thing I have to change is the midfield. The midfield here again, totally, in the Scotland game, the problem is the midfield got totally overrun. We have three players in midfield with Mount. Whoever, as Keane says quite often in his commentary, whoever controls the midfield will probably win the game. So the problem here is England couldn't win the game because they didn't have control of the midfield. When you don't have control of the midfield, you don't have the ball in that control, and therefore there's not even the possibility of you creating any opportunities really, other than the odd one or two. So if you've got a holding midfielder and you've got two, you never let them get in this situation where they're both past their holding role. And for me, this just happened too much. We'll come on to that a bit in the Croatia game. So this is how to have attacking options. So you've got two strikers here playing up front as strikers. So an attacking striker would be, there's kind of difference between an attacking striker. There is a back to the goal striker and there is a face to the goal striker. So you're basically playing off the last man on men in this case. So we've got 2 Scotland attacking players playing there. So basically the difference is the ones with their face are looking for the run, and the ones the back to goal are looking for the ball to be played up, and they're looking to either head it on or play it back, or even control it and lay it off. So that's kind of how the attack is fundamentally built. So we've got the 2 players. We've got a player in midfield there, and we've also got the right back who's got acres of space. So Luke Shaw here is marking. So it's Tyrone Mings, I think, should be saying to Luke Shaw, at least keep an eye on the left back. Don't be marking the one of the 2 main strikers. So it's Mings who needs to keep an eye. So you can do that various ways. You can leave it like that. Just have Shaw slightly off, watching the run, not being responsible. So I think the issue is Shaw's responsible for the striker here, and he shouldn't be. But anyway, that's how to have the second options. So you've got the 2 strikers, you've got the right back, and you've got a midfield player there making a run. Whether his run is good or bad, he's making a run. I mean, that would seem to be a lot of problems with how England been playing midfield. It's like they're not even making runs, and when they do make a run, they score. So this is England's. So you've got all this space in the middle of the park. So you've got a Scotland formation here of looks like 4 or 5 with 3 attacking midfielders in front of the defence. So in front of between them. So basically, just so you've got back 4 with either a left back or left midfielder. I'm not too sure who that is or what they're doing. So they'll be back 5, but they're on the left, and then you've got 3 midfield players marking the England midfield players here, or the attacking players, or closing down the ball. And on the left, you've got on the right, on Scotland's right, you've got a player just outside that black circle. So England's problem is there's no attacking options. So there's 2 forward arrows. That's where the runner should be. So that more forward player is Sterling. So Sterling's playing 4-3-3. He's playing as pretty much an attacker or attack. He should be around that place. He should be around that red arrow or making a run to that red arrow, but it's not moving, and he's not actually moving particularly quickly. Now the other player could be making a run inside, and he's not even running, he's walking. So there are no options. So the ball's got to go back. So the Scotland player, who I think is Che Adams, can just come and close the ball down, as England have got the same problem. But you've got all these England players on the left who aren't really doing anything. So the one whose head's being cut off would be Luke Shaw, I think. It's just like, if I've got the ball in that situation and I'm being fed it, or I'm feeding it back to the defender, if I'm over the player who's feeding it back, or the defender getting the ball, what am I going to do? Who am I going to play the ball to? Because there are absolutely no options. There's nothing on at all. So basically, Harry Kane's been totally isolated up front for at least 2 games. I think that began to change in the Czech game, but it's still a problem. So people have had a pop at Harry Kane. Fair enough. He's a striker. They said to score goals. He's not scoring goals. He's not getting a lot of chances. He's not touching the ball a lot. Actually, he's completely isolated. So although England are playing 4-3-3, the way England are playing totally isolates Harry Kane. He's pretty much playing on his own. So his problem is he's got all the defenders watching out for him, certainly the central defenders. So he's got to think about 2 players, not just beating one player or outmoving one player. So England's defensive midfield, they're just a case of too many cooks here. So for whatever reason, the play and the players have got all congregated and compressed in one area of the pitch. So where's the movement? So far as Scotland, I'll just play it out to this number 2. So although it looks like Luke Shaw's not marking him, that's a traditional way you would set up a defence. Because by the time the ball comes to the 2, Luke Shaw can have closed him down. So it's keeping a tight formation, but it's 2 try across them before. I don't think this picture is a particular problem, but it's just an example of how England's defence and then defensive midfield and then also that entire midfield, it's just against too many cooks doing the same thing. They look like they're trying to do the same thing. It's kind of a bit like playing kids football. So Harry Kane's isolated again. So Harry Kane's rubbish. He's playing rubbish. As I put in the picture, maybe not. To him, he actually breaks free. There's no support for him. There are no runners there. So this is just as the cross was made. Literally his run's perfect. So the red arrow is where the ball's got to go. So actually, Harry Kane's not had the credit for doing what he should be doing well. So this is a problem. So the ball comes over. Harry Kane's now got an opportunity. Now, there's 4 X's. The 2 black X's is where the ball wants to go. So either bounces on the lower one there and Harry Kane's got a shooting opportunity with his foot, or the ball comes higher and he's got an opportunity with the higher black X with his head. Actually, the ball bounces about where the right. So what Harry Kane has to do is to check his run and run along the red line rather than the white line. The white line's the perfect line for the opportunity. So actually, this opportunity has been created and the pass isn't good enough. So basically, I'd say even if the ball comes on that white line between the 2 X's, Harry Kane will score. Even if it comes middle, he can either jump and volley it, he can control it with his knee, and he's got a shooting chance. X, the top X, head, even chest, control. So the issue here is, it's the same issue as a goalkeeper when someone shoots and the way the shot's made, it bounces. So the goalkeeper has to make a decision and anticipate where the ball's going to him because it bounces. Now, it's coming straight at him. The difference here is Harry Kane is the ball's coming across him, so he's got no idea how the flight of the ball is going to bounce. So he's just, as you can see, he's trying to make a run there, has to make it along the red line, has no idea where the ball's going to be. So he ends up just flinging himself at the second red X to the left because the ball's not played very well. So another thing is, when you have those opportunities, you have to make the most of them. This is international football. So I think half the problem is this is the right back, who necessarily you wouldn't choose as first right back. So, but the point is, if we can get midfield players and wingers and even players playing off the forwards in those positions to cross the ball to Harry Kane, and they've got a bit more quality than the fullbacks. Certainly the right fullback. When Kyle Walker came on and played in the Czech game, he really wasn't attacking any better, but I think he was putting the team for Saka to be a backup to Saka, because obviously Saka's a young lad. So he was putting there for his defensive abilities, not his attacking. But you need players in those positions making crosses. So again, one of the ways as a midfield player, how do you get the ball to the forward, is you create opportunities from the wing, which is how England scored through Jack Grealish in the Czech game. So this is an England example. So in the box, there's still no attacking opportunities except Kane. So number 19, whoever that is, I can't remember who that would be. So Shaw's just in front of him making him. So basically, the player who's free there is Harry Kane. So give him the ball. Sterling, so the red arrow on the left, you can't play through, you can't play over. So if he plays the ball slightly over, the chances the keeper is going to come. Actually, when he plays the ball, Sterling's going to be offside. Foden is making a run. He's pretty much saying, "Give me the ball." But actually, by the time again the ball comes over to him, the Scotland players will have closed them down. So the option is the right fullback, but again, that's a bit of a difficult pass. But basically, I think this is probably Mason Mount. If Mason Mount has got the intelligence to understand where Harry Kane is, he'll give him the ball. He can even back heel and flick it back to him, and then that's an opportunity. So again, this is this is one of the opportunities in the Scotland game, or one of the things that would annoy me. So again, you look at the space, you look at how the players are playing and what formation the players are in at that moment, and they don't seem to be prepared at all very well. So there's all that space in the middle of the park between the back four and the midfield four, or the midfield three. We haven't mentioned this actually, but we talk of formations in 3 lines. Actually, it's not quite true, because the formation changes depending on whether the team is defending or is attacking. So the way we tend to look at formation before game is how players would attack. But even then, we've got 3. So you've got, again, the 2 holding midfielders here, who are, where's the holding midfielder in the space? And again, they look like they're on a 10-metre string. So this is just another example. But the point here is the Scotland player sees space, runs into it, and then gets the ball. So ironically, I saw this and just thought, I've got to put this in. So this is England bench watching the Scotland game. So it's almost like a captain competition. So we've seen several things. We've seen issues with the formation. There were no runners. There's no width. There's no passing. There's no quick passing. The pace is a bit slow. There's no distribution, and when the ball's being distributed, there's no penetration. You've got 3 guys there just watching the game go away from England on the bench. Yeah, so it's pretty much like a caption competition. So actually, if you want to put, if you want to put in the comments caption for whoever's saying what, I think Jack Grealish is just he's just about to sit down because he's been warming up. I mean, what those 3 guys were thinking there. I mean, watch it from the opposite end of the spectrum, looking at it through the TV lens. It's just like this game's getting away from England is ridiculous. The attacking football is just not good enough. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So let's just think about what England potentially needs to do. So this is England's goal v Croatia. So that attacking midfielder makes a run. So this for me is part of the problem with England's 4-3-3 formation. You've got ironically, the way that formation is conceived, the midfield, that there would seem to be a big distance between the attack and them. So the link-up play there, you've got an issue. So my issue there is if you have a midfielder, if you have a lineup of the opposition, whoever they are, so they're playing 4-5-1, 4-3-3, or even 4-4-2, or whatever. It's like how the midfield playing attacking wise, where they're gonna be the link up, so they're playing between the lines of the opposition's defence and attack. And that to me seems to be largely missing. So attacking midfielder makes a run. So this is Calvin Phillips making a run. I think it's Phil Foden at the bottom who actually has the ball, sees him, gives him the ball. But this is an example of what you do. This is how to create opportunities. So basically, if you go back to the beginning, so my long rant, I spent a long time ranting on about this. So how do you win football matches? Well, you score goals. How do you score goals? Well, the team that has the possession scores the goals. It's just not about possession. This is basically what the whole beginning and part of this video is really about: how to break down defensive formation that is granite. So you need good distribution in terms of passing that penetrates either between the midfield and attack with the link-up play, or penetrates by creating opportunities for strikers, and then that creates opportunities, and opportunities create goals. you also need runners, and you also need wide men, or people running out wide if you don't have a wide man, creating opportunities for space on the side. And then that altogether, particularly the running, stretches your position. So anyway, back to this. So Calvin Phillips makes a run. So he's between the lines. So my issue is the way England are playing, no one's ever made a run that runs between the lines and picks the ball up. This was pretty much any time, and certainly the other two games, that kind of the way that England were playing and how they were set up was non-existent. And this is part of the problem why there's no opportunities and you don't win the game. So in the Scotland game, part of the reason it just wrecked the whole game. In the Czech game, you had players like Grealish and Saka on, who so Grealish was playing more up front, creating opportunities, and Saka was playing the wide man. I mean, you could say, oh, it's so ironic what I'm saying looking back, but actually, you know, it began to create this where before this game, but it shows you how you have players who can do that or are doing that, even from who are picked, and how that changes the game. So we need more of this. So basically, he makes a run. So Harry Kane again. Harry Kane is rubbish. So Kane actually drags the defender wide. So he could, that end of that arrow where Harry Kane is. So at the beginning of that arrow, that's where you would expect him to be, but he actually makes a run. So because he's making a run, the central defender has to go with him. So it basically creates this vast amount of space in the middle of the pitch. So Raheem Sterling is making a run, just runs naturally into space. And then Calvin Phillips gives him the ball. So the issue here is the right back, sorry. So just went on the left for some reason. So this is go back to intelligence. Intelligence means a lot of different things, but in terms of defensive football, it's having the intelligence to know that if you're that right back, you need to cover your central defender anyway. He sees that way too late, and this is what creates the opportunity. You could say lots about this. Basically, this is how you create goals through the middle of the pitch. It's the primary way you would. It is, in fact, really, really easy. It requires midfield runners, however. So this is what England lack. So this is the Czechs. So I've just added a few other things other than from the Scotland game. We'll go back to some other Scotland bits as well. So this is how England scored. So is that Harry Kane creating an opportunity? Yeah. So Harry Kane gets the ball here. You can see the box as well is just full of defenders. Naturally, you're like, how are we going to create a goal? So I was like trying to organise the pictures. Go, Harry Kane's going to give the ball back to Luke Shaw, and then he's going to give it to Jack Grealish. But actually, Harry Kane just leads straight. He sees the opportunity and gives it straight to Jack Grealish. So this is why you need the likes of Jack Grealish on for England from the start for every game, because he naturally does this, because he's that type of player. For whatever reasons, Foden and Sterling, when they're playing up front, haven't, and Mount, when he has played, pre-COVID issues, hasn't created the opportunities. So the different types of players. So my real big question thinking about that is, why can Jack Grealish do this in one game and the others not do it in more than 2.5, 3 games? So he's in a position wide to get the ball to feed for a cross. Naturally, he gets the ball. I mean, I don't even have to do slides. So really, Kane feeds the ball to Grealish there. Grealish is in a perfect position. Sterling is playing player up front. So this is another issue. When you're playing that top three in a 4-3-3 formation. It's all about movement for the top three. And obviously, Sterling's got bags of pace. He's one of the England players with loads of pace. But he hasn't really moved around a lot. So here he's come in, as we've seen it in other pictures. He's when Kane's moved off from his natural position, Sterling is there. But actually, apart from when there's a situation for a cross, Sterling can't. Sterling, the way he is and the way he plays, and particularly his height in the box, he's not built height-wise to make the best use of crosses. In this occasion, he does, and he does score, but he scores because of the play of Grealish and Kane. Really, Kane creates an opportunity for Grealish. Grealish creates a cross, which Sterling just passed to put his head on. So I think the other player at the back, Saka, there. So Saka comes back, walking back, comes across and actually does the natural striker thing, but jumps too early and makes his run too early, a little bit. But actually, Sterling sees that, goes behind him and just puts a ball into an empty net. So first thing I would have done is not played Sterling from first game. I just think for various reasons it will be a highly contentious issue. So one of the reasons he scored both the goals. So as we've seen, he didn't create that goal. He just scored an open goal. So naturally he should be scoring goals. It's a pretty easy chance. So in Scotland, again, the same thing. So although, yes, he has scored the 2 goals, he's been in the right place, yes, at the right time, but he really hasn't had to do much. So in the Czech game, he's just got to put his head on the ball. On the Croatia game, as we've seen, Phillips has made the run. Kane's dragged the defender. The fullback's not covered. He's got a one-on-one opportunity. But this is it. He almost misses it. Certainly in the 3 games, apart from the goal he scored, it's the next best opportunity, and he almost misses it. So this is my issue. If you're playing him as a striker, he's not an instinctive striker. I mean, it's a longer conversation. Why wouldn't play Sterling? For me, that's would be the primary issue, and is now probably the second issue, but I still wouldn't play him. So for me, he's not an instinctive striker. Instinctive striker naturally gets the ball, scores goals, and I just don't see him as that. I see him more as a winger, as historically he's been a winger. Therefore, I'll be looking for him to use his pace, like we're going to see, and he messes the chance up. So that's another issue. So probably if I was doing a more fuller video looking at Sterling one, particularly his chances, I think there's just some issues with his playing, particularly given his experience. So he's not an instinctive striker. He's not. So there, for me, even as a midfielder, I'd get a ball in that kind of position or a bit further back, and instinctively I'd hit it without thinking. So instead, he delays it. So he's gone up, opportunity to score a goal. He's pretty much one-on-one, but instead he delays. He delays so long that actually the left back's now got the time to cover, and he always makes a tackle instead. So this is actually what happens. So he seems to dawdle and just panics. At the last moment, he hits the ball, so the keeper actually almost saves it. See, if you see that white dot where the goalkeeper's head, that's the ball. So he's not particularly placed it very well, or placed it where a striker instinctively would. So in this picture, actually, he's just about got his shot in time, but actually, you can see the right back still made contact with him and spun him. It looks a bit weird. So if we look at just this picture here from the opposite, so you can see that's when So this is my problem with Sterling. He doesn't seem to have the ability to make instinctive decisions, particularly up front, and quite often makes the wrong decision. Doesn't use his pace as much. So he's kind of almost, he either, for me, either he's been told to play this way or naturally wants to play this way. But the way he wants to play or has been told to play, or a bit of both, isn't instinctively what he's good at. What he's good at is pace. He just runs, but you wouldn't then therefore play him down the middle. You wouldn't put him as a striker. You wouldn't put him off the striker. You'd be playing in between the lines in the midfield and just say, right, start as a winger and come inside and link up the play, or start inside and make a run outside. We haven't gone into this, but typically where you are as a striker and the way that a midfielder or anyone can play the ball to you, and we'll see how Shaw's played the ball, is there has to be a lot of space in front of you to play between the striker and the goalkeeper and the goal, because naturally the goalkeeper is going to come out and shut the space down. So therefore, actually, in terms of space, there's much more space on the wings where the goalkeeper isn't, and that's because the goalkeeper's not there. Now, if the ball's played and the goalkeeper can get it, he's going to stay because there's no threat to his goal. He's only coming out because there's a threat to his goal and he's got to do something about it. So even if the goalkeeper can come out and get the ball, if it's played wide down the wing, say 40 yards, and it's a race between the defender and someone like Sterling, the attacker, and they're both like 30 or 25 yards from the ball, naturally, if the attacker gets there before the goalkeeper's got a problem, which he wouldn't have if he just stayed, so he's going to stay in this line. So that's where the opportunity is. So here we can see so Sterling, for me, he's got all the time in the world, too much time really. He should just instinctively hit it to the corner, but what he does is he dawdles and he panics a bit. He panics so much he just realises he's got to hit the ball, so he just hits it. That's not good striking technique from anyway. And then the right back almost stops the shots, and then it's because of the technique so bad, it's not instinctive as a striker. So if this was Kane, he'd just belt it in the corner, right or left. Or if he wanted to be clever, he'd even chip the goalkeeper. He's got probably not a good option, but he's got enough time to try it. And then as he strikes it, he literally plays it, and he plays it not quite at the goalkeeper, but very close to him. And actually, the ball touches the goalkeeper and comes off him. So the goalkeeper could have easily saved it. So those are kind of all my problems. So it's not covering anything holistically. He's just trying to go through some of the major things I've seen, and we've done this for an hour now, so it's long enough. So the goal was to cut it down. So there were more screenshots I could have showed. So I think I took Sterling's chance. So this is how, I don't have the pictures to show. So this is how I think you would naturally play Sterling in a place where he's able to benefit from the situation where early in the Czech game, Shaw had the ball, he was a long way from goal, and he just played behind and he used his pace. But again, it's the same issue. He's not an instinctive striker. He doesn't naturally know what to do, doesn't seem to know what to do. And actually, he should have scored. If you watch it carefully, the goalkeeper sort of debates whether to come first and then just rushes out. And he's rushing out at such speed. Sterling almost seems to panic. So one of the angles that the shot was replayed, you can see he doesn't hit the ball cleanly with the instep, which is like on the laces. So if you hit the ball cleanly goes straight and it sort of curls away and then hits the post. So he could have done a number of things there in terms of not panicking, being sure about what he was doing, hitting the ball cleanly, being more instinctive. He could have even taken it around the goalkeeper if he had the intelligence to realise that the goalkeeper's paused, giving him the opportunity, and then he's rushed out. So if he goes to shoot and fakes it and just drags the ball with his right foot and drags it onto his left around the goalkeeper, he could have easily scored. So actually, although Sterling's playing well, he's scored 2 goals, he's created the opportunities. Like, well, actually, I think he should have done better. He's an international player, plays for Man City, and has the experience that he has. He should be finishing off these moves a lot more. He should be hitting the post. He should be, even the goal he scored, he should be more cleanly aware of what he's doing and strike the ball a bit more cleaner and make the goal more certain in that sense. So one of my issues with Sterling is his experience. So he plays for Man City. So I think, well, again, we won't get into this. So one of my issues with the England team and the way they're setting up is their experience. It's like they can very much play like that. So Sterling can very much play like he does for Man City and score loads of goals and get created lots of opportunities. But my issue is he's in an international tournament with international defenders who again have qualified for a tournament. So they're not bad players, they're good teams, they're just not maybe the best teams there. And then they've had 2-3 weeks to set up to practice this. So they're drilled to make it more difficult. So Sterling naturally doesn't get the opportunities he gets for City for England. There has to be a bit more news about him. He has to play better, has to play differently. Plus, the way Manchester City are set up with their bankrolled by their Arab Sheikh or whoever the guy is, and all their own money. They can just buy the best players in the world, which they do, and he's got 4 or 5 players around him that can, with their own brilliance and intelligence. England don't quite have that. Ironically, the way Southgate's played England 4-3-3 is he's been playing it with Foden, but neither Foden or Sterling seem to really know how to play that system. I mean, I haven't seen as much to know, so I haven't seen much of Manchester City to know, but I know they play different. I know they play with international players, not national players. So the quality in between English and non-English players, even British, we're not discussing, but they've been slightly different nature, more continental style of passing the ball around, less rush, more traditionally about technique. But then, even then, Foden and Sterling should know how to play with each other anyway, because they do for their club side, but they've not been linking up. So that has to do with them on the day, or the way they've been set up and prepared, or just the way the whole England team is playing. It just doesn't, in many respects, suit them. Now, Foden, for his lack of experience, I would give him the benefit of the doubt, but this is my issue with Sterling. He's probably the second most experienced player, if not the most experienced player in the England team in terms of caps. He should be doing a lot better than he is. Him and Harry Kane, they shouldn't be relying on the likes of Foden, Mount, Rice, Phillips, and the other players that have been playing. I mean, those were more. Did I say Mount? I think I said Mount, but Mason Mount anyway. And I like all these players. They're good players. They should be playing for England, but there's this over-reliance on players that have no experience of the situation they're in. Naturally, they're not going to play that well. And the players that have the experience, Sterling, Kane, are not performing. So, for various reasons, and I won't go into it anymore, although I probably might make a video one day, I would drop Sterling. Right. So these are my tweets before the Czech game. So I'm not going to regurgitate. Because I put it on a... That was my lineup. So I was glad to see change in that direction two ways, one more attacking and one more experience. We'll talk about this in a bit. But was the more attacking just because because Gareth had to play more, Gareth Southgate obviously had to play more attacking players, because more attacking different players, therefore a different formation, because Mason Mount wasn't playing, possibly. But it's in the right direction, but isn't far enough. So anyway, I've done my bit pre-checks. This is kind of post Scotland, and kind of in review of the Czech game as well. So obviously much better, but still not good enough. I mean, we're not going to talk about this, but you get to certain standards of football. So Fergie used to say this, Raheem will say this. You have to simply say it's not good enough. It's not being harsh. It's just like, these are standards. These are standards that set to be a winning football club or a winner. You meet those standards and actually you surpass them. When you don't regularly. Simply you say it's not good enough. Simply over the 3 games not good enough. But I was glad to see it was more like it from England. The changes actually made a difference. So I think there are a few challenges for moving forward in terms of how we'll play, who Gareth Southgate will pick, and what the formation will be. So the second thing on Twitter was just that lower tweet. So just the COVID, that whole situation was just ridiculous, and is worthy of its own video, given everything everyone in the world's going through. The fact that England have to self-isolate 2 players and that, because they came into contact with a Scotland player, and that Scotland player never in a million years could have passed on coronavirus to any of the Scotland players. And a part of it is that whole indoor-outdoor thing. Like, they're on they share a hotel, they share facilities, they share the changing room, they shared a coach. But anyway, let's not get into that. So this is actually the lineup. So yeah, I don't know why we're playing 4-3-3. So 4-2-3-1 much better suited, because no one's really a striker. So I mean, this is how I say, if you're gonna, putting Sterling and Foden in the front 3, they're not strikers. They naturally look a bit out of their depth. Again, Foden, I'd give him the benefit of the doubt. Sterling, with his experience, he should know how to play that. Harry Kane should not be getting isolated. There should be a lot more movement. There should be movement behind, but there should be a lot of movement in front of Kane as well, coming to get the ball and to play between the lines, between the defence and the midfield. I think that's very important in top level football, so particularly international. So very happy to see Kane's playing up there, and that the 3 behind him are playing off him. So to me, they were playing between the lines. Sterling, for me, seemed to have a better game there, but I'd still replace him. So that's much more suited England. I still wouldn't have played that team. That still wouldn't be my team. So I think first issue, COVID changed, the whole COVID situation changed the situation. So obviously Mason Mount couldn't play, so they had to change anything. So given the option, would you put Mason Mount back in? Well, I actually would have played him if I was given the option in the Czech game. But I'm kidding over, and I wouldn't have played him. Now we've done much better attacking wise in that game. Even if there are things that still need fixing, I'd think about attacking wise keeping that along the same lines with the same players. So I don't think necessarily Mason Mount comes in. I also in my lineup would have played Foden. I would have given him the benefit of the doubt. I would have taken Sterling off. So I would have definitely played Foden, Grealish, and Saka. So I actually put Jordan Sancho in my formation. So obviously Sancho didn't get picked. That's just the player I would have picked. Saka is a like for like, so happy with that. I'd actually keep him now, given that performance. Would be interesting in England's lineup. This is what I was thinking about attacking wise, having two players on both wings, not just on one. So again, for me, Sterling's got to be playing more like that because naturally he's a winger. He's not a striker. Beginning of his days in the World Cup, whenever he came on the scene for England, he was playing as a winger. He wasn't playing as a striker, so he should naturally be able to do that anyway. But he just doesn't seem to either. It doesn't seem to do that anyway, for whatever reason, whether it's one or something else or formation. But I'd like to see someone on the opposite wing. Jack Grealish, superstar. Don't know why he got taken off. But yeah, put someone like Grealish there who's going to not just have the ability of Grealish, but the character. He's going to want to grab chance and grab the game by the scruff of the neck and create chances. So he put himself in that situation to create that chance, got the ball off Kane, created chances, Sterling scored. That's how it works attacking football. You know, it's very simple, basically. So very good. Would definitely keep him. So I'd keep Grealish, I'd keep Saka, I'd keep Foden, I'd get rid of Sterling. But yeah, generally just want to be highlighting or developing or thinking about some of the issues we dealt with attacking wise. Midfielders. So as I said before, Sterling would be my number one problem. It's now my number two. So I think Rice and Phillips would now be my number one problem. So I think they played 2.5 games together. So I think fair enough, you can give them the dues in the Croatia game, but I think honestly, the Croatia game will we set up a formation with those two to stifle Croatia. I think the problem you've got is having attacking intent with that. So ironically, it worked, and it worked because you've got two holding midfield players who play the same position and are not playing the same position. Okay, one's far more forward, so they're doing the same job but in different places. Actually, the chance that Sterling scored almost shouts out like you need. If you're going to play them, like don't play them how they played in the last game and a half before Rice came off, because they're literally 10 meters apart. Like as I said before, they're on a string, doing the same role along the same position, 10 meters apart. You don't. That's not going to work in international football. So you need to decide which one of them is a holding midfielder and which one isn't, and play them like you did in the Croatia game. But actually, in reality, you don't need two holding midfield players in international football. And part of my problem would be, is Rice good enough for international standard football? No. So the issues within that is they're really played there to, as Roy Keane says, you take charge of the midfield, you win the midfield battle, and you've got a good chance to win the game. In the game and a half they played post Croatia, they've shown that they can't at all. They've shown that they can't control the midfield. So that has to change simply for that reason. So that would be my primary reason for getting rid of them. Second, just like they can't be playing in the same position. You need to do something, play them like Croatia. But I'd rather have someone else in there. I'd rather have Grealish playing in that more advanced role, or I would put Mason Mount in that role. Or if you're going to play two holding midfielders like that, Mason Mount can do that for you, but he's a different type of player. He's got much more capability to play the through ball. So you play Rice with Mason Mount or Phillips with Mason Mount. You do not play the two of them. I think probably we'll get the two of them. Me in my lineup, I put up in Twitter. If I go back to it, I don't really need to go back to it. So I think all around there's a thing about experience. So you need experience in the game, experience of football to dominate the game, and you need some experience coming off the bench. And actually, we've got too many young players in there. So the type of players that can play, not necessarily in a holding role, but in a less attacking role in midfield, in the middle, and take the game, are basically the three that played and Jordan Henderson. So in my lineup, I would have put Jordan Henderson, just experience. So I think this is the issue. Those two guys, and it's the issue with all the experienced players. So one, they don't have enough experience of international football. Two, in that this is their first tournament. They've got no experience of international football in tournaments whatsoever, apart from the experience they're gaining. So therefore, how do you perceive that lack of experience will do anything then not help dominate the midfield and take control of the midfield and then take control of the game? And I mean Mason Mount as well. Mason Mount's not really shown his ability, and they've got no experience. So the water issue, Jordan Henderson is there for the experience. So when he came on, I thought he did really well, and seemed to be running around and doing what the other three younger lads, or younger pups, as you may want to call them, or as I'm referring to, should be doing in the situation in the games they've been playing. It's like being a bit more active and running around a bit. So I think the issue with Jordan Henderson is, obviously, he's been injured. Is he match fit? Can he do that? Can he translate that experience on the pitch? So I would have played him from the beginning and got rid of both Rice, and just because I think England need that experience. The other issue is, I thought the squad was very good when it was picked. For yes, good squad. I would have picked other players with a bit more experience, but not necessarily for the reason. But actually, the Scotland game proved this point. Actually, Gareth Southgate's chosen the wrong squad. He's chosen players with too much youth, not enough experience. Because when something's going wrong in the Scotland game, you want to bring someone on who has some, not just experience, but nous who can possibly change the game. So who do you bring on in that situation? I think Jordan Henderson, to bring him into that situation, that Scotland game would have been risky. So we should have picked someone else in midfield who could have played in the middle, been another option, someone we could bring off the bench that can change the game. So actually, we've got no one of experience, particularly in the middle of the park, in midfield, to control the game, to bring off the bench who's got experience who can change the game. Got no one. So we're kind of screwed there. England are basically screwed because the squad has been picked. I would have put Jesse Lingard in there for various reasons. One, he's only played half a season of football. Two, he is playing well enough for West Ham when he was on loan. Three, he has some experience, so I would have picked him for that reason. Well, for those three reasons, I would have thought that was one of the reasons he'd definitely be in the squad. In fact, I retrospectively would have put him in squad in front of Calvin Phillips, despite what Calvin Phillips. So Calvin Phillips in the Croatia game was our best player, but if we're going to win the tournament, if we're going to do well in the tournament, we can't be playing players that do well in games just because they'd be given a negative withholding factor. So if we're going to play well and go and take games by the scruff of the neck and win the tournament, we've got to be playing positive football, not negative. So yes, he had a good game, but you replicate that in a Portugal, in a Spain, in a Germany, which we'll see. Actually, I think Gareth Southgate will play them both. But I think he shouldn't. Against a Belgium, against an Italian team with that formation that we looked at briefly. I don't think they've not got enough experience. So with that experience, they play well in Premier League for their teams. So another issue with experience is, yeah, this is a thing about England. We have players that can play and do well in group games, but what's the expectation in the group game? So England are probably always, for years and years, between the 5th best team in the world and the 15th. So they're playing players of not good quality, and they can reproduce that club form in those group games because they're not playing since the kinds of teams they're playing now. When they come up against the type of teams they're playing now, they come unstuck, and I think this is why. So I think this is why Southgate's been the wrong team. And again, the same thing with Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling plays very well in a group game, so he deserves this. He should be playing this well. He's playing for England in a group game is much like playing for City in the Premier League. It's not going to be such a challenge, at least. It's the first thing I'd say on that. So ultimately, with that midfield, where's that experience to grab the game by the scruff of the neck? I mean, basically, I'll just say simply, I think I've said this before, in 90 minutes post-Croatia, they play, this is what I didn't say, they played against lesser teams that expect to be, teams that expect to grab that game by the scruff of the neck, particularly in midfield, and win the midfield battle, and they haven't. So we're kind of screwed then against the likes of the countries which we just mentioned. So he's got to play a different formation. Now, I go on into some detail about this in my rant, my 3-hour rant plus. It's like Rio Ferdinand talks about screaming, but they were not really screaming, but they're shouting at the players in front of him, the holding midfield players, of what to do and where to go. Particularly with Michael Carrick. Both of them say in their books, actually, it worked really well. And I think this is the point. You need a good quality centre-back with lots of experience who has that personality where they can dictate things. So again, in midfield, not just experience, but experience doing that. We need Declan Rice or Kelvin Phillips, or possibly both, to be that in midfield, and I don't think they can be. I don't think the England team in the first 2 games we played, the central defenders, can be. Stones, great player, amazing. Should be playing, but doesn't have the personality to do that. So therefore, I would have put Harry Maguire in to play alongside him just for that role. Even if he wasn't completely match fit, he came through the game well as well. Actually, I think he did that in part, Harry Maguire. So I think that experience needs to be just not in midfield, but needs to be in defence. And actually, it needs someone like Harry Maguire to come in and tell the holding midfield player what to do and what ones to catch. And kind of the way Ferdinand described it, he was kind of Carrick's eyes in the back of his head that could see things that Carrick couldn't in terms of runners and how the play was going and where Carrick should be standing when they would defend him. But it needs to be better. I think Declan Rice is what I think is a future England holding midfield player, just lacks experience, but seems to be playing too much just in front of the back four. Again, when you're trying to break down the likes of Scotland and Czech Republic, you can't be dominating the midfield by being in that position. You've got to push up a bit more. And again, in some of the pictures, we've seen both of them playing as holding midfield players and attacking too much. So you kind of got to not be attacking, but pushing and narrowing the game up the pitch. But it's still being in front of you, not being too far up the pitch that it gets behind you. So they've actually played a back 3 with Cole Walker. And I think my main, it's kind of 50-50 if you play a back 3 or a back 4. So my main reasoning was Cole, having a back 3, you'd have Stones and Walker there to cover Maguire and just go attacking. So I wouldn't have played Shaw. Shaw had a good game though. In a back 4, I'd play Shaw. So Shaw's the other guy add to that. I'd like to see the right guy more attacking. Now, again, with likes to Cole Walker, I think Cole Walker was picked because Saka was picked just as a defensive cover. So potentially keep the back four the same. Because, as I said, I'd keep Saka. So I'd have Saka on the right, I think it is. Just give him the ball, let him run at people, let him take people on. I think the way you play that passing game, very passive and slow and very non-moving, in front of a tight defensive formation, you just get impatient and you just try a stupid pass and you lose the ball. So what's the harm in allowing someone like Saka just to run the ball? If he loses the ball half the time, even 3/4 of the time, so if he makes 15 runs at the opposite fullback and loses the ball 10 times, don't care because he's beaten the player 5 times if he creates 5 opportunities. Even if he creates 3. But I don't see any difference between him not doing that and not making so many runs and then them just passing the ball and giving it away anyway. You want to be creating opportunities, and actually one of the greatest opportunities you've got in creating opportunities is by having someone like Saka with Saka's pace and Sterling with Sterling's pace beating people. It's just like, just for whatever reason, Sterling just doesn't play like that anymore. Would I play Henderson or Rice? I wouldn't play Phillips. I'd have one holding midfield player. 50-50. Let's just say, for argument's sake, just stick with Rice. So you've got Rice in playing the holding role, Saka on the right, Grealish, and then any one of the players. I mean, it depends how you see the formation, see the game with the Germans. Be inclined, not just because I'm a United fan, to play Marcus Rashford. Now, in my criticism of the way England have been set up in a 4-3-3, I think if you play someone with Rashford, you need to play a striker, and Kane's a back to goal striker, and Rashford's a face to goal striker. So I think playing Rashford in that role will work because naturally that's how he plays, and then he can drift on the wing. So I'd like to see England's forward players, other than Kane, if you're going to play it, forward players drift out on the wing and move left and right, not just up and down a bit. So I would play Rashford. Where and how you play him, I don't really care. And I would probably play Sancho. But he's a right winger, isn't he? Might work. Sancho or Bellingham or Phil Foden. To me, it doesn't really matter, personnel wise, as long as you've got the right kind of attacking formation. So to me, to cap it all off, you've got the right type of players in the right formation along those lines. There needs to be far more movement between the lines, playing forwards, and even if we're not playing forwards, particularly if we are, the Foden and the Sterling role, moving out wide to pick up the ball and then feeding it. Whatever formation you need to be playing with a lot more speed. Again, as we've shown, there's these gaps between defense and attack. I think we fixed that with the formation, particularly in the first half against the Czechs. But Needs to be more speed. Jack Grealish will make a difference with Saka running and someone else running from the left, and another creative player who can link up play like Rashford or Foden or Bellingham or Sancho, which is why to me it doesn't really matter. But they've got to be making more of an effect on the attack. I think runs is important. Movement and runs and dragging the German line across, because the German game is going to be a very tactical game. So we've got to have the discipline to hold our shape and to be tactical. I mean, when I was a kid and I played midfield, I was a box-to-box player, and there seems to be either holding midfield players now or attacking midfield players. So I'd like to see a box-to-box player in a traditional German vein as well. They had the same. We don't really seem to have that, but I'd like to see maybe even Troy and Grealish or Mount, even Grealish or Mount, or both in kind of box to box. I think certainly we need Grealish's attacking opportunities, because him and Saka made a difference. So I would keep that. So that would be my tips for the England team. So this has been just a bit more than 90 minutes. So literally the entire length of a football match with added a bit more extra injury time. So we'll see what happens and what gets played, and then maybe review that at a later date. So the German game's in 2 days, I think. So looking forward to that anyway. We'll see what happens. Yeah, if you've got any ideas or comments, yeah, just do the normal, you know what to do. Okay, see ya, bye.